Welcome back into my office. You are with me, Brian, and let us now have a look at this assortment here of new arrivals that we have cataloged over the past week. We'll start with this first book, 3731. This will be a brief overview showing how each of these books survives. The first thing I'll show you is that the contents are sound, tight, and square. In this book here, it is a compilation of 12 different issues of this very influential French periodical devoted to Japanese culture by Bing. I think his first name was Stanley, I believe. He was a merchant in Paris who imported goods and then eventually got infatuated with Japanese culture and published for 3 years, I believe, this influential plate book that came out monthly. Each issue, like so, has these really attractive color covers, which we have identified within it, like so. So I'll just show you very briefly some of the plates. There are a profusion of them. There are hundreds of them, really. The vast majority of them, I think, somebody could readily remove and frame or mat. But this gives you just a rough idea of the contents of this wonderful periodical. You'll notice the paper is slightly toned. Well, it's well-toned, actually, uniformly age-toned. So it just has to be, the pages just have to flip through them carefully. But if you do so, it's a sturdy publication. And now you have an idea. Very nice book. The next one is this Salon. It's a limited edition in a period. Half leather binding like so. Top edge gilt. These are deckled edges here. It's a plate book. There are marbled end papers like so. And we see it is a limited edition, 675 copies total. This is number 156. It is basically a profusion of these typogravure or rotogravure or sort of lithograph offset. They're just very nicely printed plates. Many of them actually have a plate impression on the sheet around that plate. And they're all clean like this, more or less. There's some small minor spotting on some margins, nothing severe. Just a very lovely 19th century book. This is a beautiful binding. It's B3806. Look at this. Very, very nice. All edges gilt, marbled end papers. This nice gilt stamp to the front cover right there. Edmund Spencer, beautiful engraved frontis. It's a London imprint, mid-19th century, like so. The book is essentially almost like new, like it was sat on the shelf 130 years ago. Here is this monumental book on the history of slavery in a period full leather binding. There is this crack coming down the front here. The cover is still very well attached. There are these marbled end papers like so. And if I set the book down like this, mid-19th century, 1858, Columbus, Ohio. This is one of those subscription books of the era that was sold door to door by book canvassers or salesmen, traveling salesmen back. Can you imagine when someone would knock on your front door? This is fascinating right here. It's a little publisher's handbill, promotional, and there are all throughout this various types of images relating to the history of slavery. This is the famous image of the cross-section of a slave ship showing the inhumane conditions. And we see here there is scattered spotting and foxing throughout, but the text block does remain tight. And so that's how this book survives. We've got next this mid-18th century French full leather binding. That's B3739. It is a history of Voyages, odd volume from a monumental set, which I believe has something like 70 volumes or so in it. And there's the imprint. This is the 5th volume. It has, as described, I believe, 2 plates in it. There's that image there relating to South Africa. There is also this one of Cape Verde Islands. And I think I may well, yeah, there's another one right here. Yeah, right there. But you see the text block is clean and the binding is sound. There's some creasing and some chipping and some wear, as typical of French bindings of the mid-18th century, like that. This is a gorgeous extra illustrated 2-volume set. Look at these in this grained full Morocco, top edges gilt, even the board edges are gilt with these turn-ins gilt. A very fine 1866 extra illustrated, and what that means is all throughout here these supplemental plates by an early owner have been inserted at the bindery. Look at this, yes, there are a profusion of them. Look at this, yes. There's even a count done here at the front of the first volume, I do believe. Yes, there are 89 extra plates, some of them quite scarce or interesting. Like there's a nice 18th century engraved image of Stonehenge right there. No doubt that's scarce. There's Coleridge. Yeah, there's portraits. This is a nice scarce Cowley 18th century engraving. Okay. So this is a wonderful set. Unique. These types of extra illustrated books of the 18th and 19th century are often basically unique examples done up for their owners. So they're one-of-a-kind items. Yes, this is a very nice set. Okay. Next we have The Story of My Boyhood and Youth by John Muir, 1913, in this beautiful leather binding. And what we see here is what appears to be his signature, 1903, there. And right here, that was just a loose inserted postcard in there. I'm going to suggest that signature is someone else has written it in there. I cannot vouch for it, and we will be presenting that book as if that signature was not even there. The Jest book here, look at this beautiful binding. Little bit of, just a small little bit of splitting along the surface of this front joint. The cover is still very strongly attached. Beautiful gilt turn-ins here. And we see 1909, the Jest book. Okay. Give me a quick through that. And we've got 2 more to go through, and that'll sort of take us into our next video. The Christmas Year, look at this book. Beautiful period binding, mid-19th century, Philadelphia. These types of American period bindings are really pleasing. And this one is B3802. Here is a beautiful 2-volume set. Here, mid-18th century, and it's in the original period modeled calf bindings that are French. We see it's a very famous work by Tasso, Jerusalem Liberated. This is the Paris 1771 edition, which is famed for its plates, like so. I'm going to just give you a brief flip through so you can get a sense of the placement of the plates and how they survive. The text block is clean. You'll notice that there are these very lovely full-page plates, often these vignette-style illustrations, as well as some chapter tailpieces, like here. Large one that's beautiful, well engraved with cherubs, like so. Chapter heading right there. Beautiful illustrated set, like this. And the second volume is the same. I'll show you that very briefly. There is some chipping here. As you can see, the bindings are worn. The front joint on this is split. The rear joint is splitting, but all the covers are still well attached. As typical French bindings of this vintage in this era tend to be sewn and bound in a manner that is virtually indestructible. These types of books, the covers can come off and the text block is still absolutely sewn tight and sound. These books will survive for hundreds more years. So that gives you an overview. It actually has a small little bookseller tag here from a Rome book dealer, a Rappaport. And there's that beautiful set. And finally, what we have here is this charming small pocket-sized atlas, probably late 19th century full leather, like so. The binding stamped down here by Asprey of London. We see from the title page here that it has 145 colored plates containing 170 maps and diagrams. List of the contents, like so. Probably 1890s, something like this, maybe 1900. And there are this profusion from front to back of all of these color maps with diagrams and pictorial cross-section sort of comparative charts comparing exports and all kinds of products and production and things like this. Well preserved, clean, tight, and sound. A couple little scuff marks. But there we have it. That's a brief overview of a few items that we have added to our inventory available for your acquisition. So thanks for joining me this week, and I'll be back with you very soon.